Assessment of performance is a standard requirement in every activity, in every walk of life, in every business. In education, it's been a neglected activity, a neglected area. There is a simple formula, I think, with regard to assessment in education. The focus, of course, has to be on the student, on the learner. The formula then is, has the student learned what he or she was supposed to learn? Very frequently, educational programs have been assessed by measure of the quality of what I'll call the input. How large is the class? How energetic is the teacher? What's the quality of the computer resources? How much money is spent on the school? These are in fact not appropriate measures, evaluation measures. Appropriate evaluation measures are, has the student learned what the student is supposed to learn? How to get that answer begins with the design of the instructional program. There's quite a long tradition now in theory with regard to instructional design based on learning objectives. And in spite of the fact that we now have much more sophisticated communication equipments in schools and so on, I do believe that the established concept of building a curriculum on the basis of learning objectives is fundamentally sound. A learning objective says what action or performance a student will be able to perform, to what extent, and under what circumstances. So I like a teacher to be trained to begin the process of preparing her or his curriculum by addressing that question. For the children or students in my classroom, by the end of each lesson, by the end of each week, by the end of each term, what are the behaviors that will demonstrate that the student has learned what he or she is supposed to learn? So it begins with learning objectives. If to take a very simple example, it is expected that a young child knows the names of all 5 continents, we have a learning objective to be able to recite or state the names of 5 continents. We have a criterion there. It is 5. So then a test, teacher very gently, informally asks the child, can you tell me the names of the continents? The child can tell 4 continents. The teacher has a criterion. She has applied a test. She has assessed. The child has not yet reached the performance standard, the performance required, and she then is able to intervene and explain to the child should go perhaps to the computer, spend another half hour, and then come back and talk about the names of the continents. This can be a very humane and warm and non-threatening procedure, but it does lead to efficiency in the use of teaching resources and in good quality outcomes in learning. I might say on a larger scale, I think our educational institutions would benefit from having more systematic monitoring of performance in this way. more systematic assessment, if you will. Technology provides a special resource as entry or door access to information for use by the teacher, or more specifically for use by the student under the guidance of the teacher during the second of the three phases of teaching that I've referred to. I've referred to designing the instruction with special attention to learning objectives. I've referred to the implementation of the instruction, the implementation of the learning with the help of the instructor, and the evaluation or assessment. Technology has a place in all those three. Even in the case of objectives, I would say, as a beginning teacher today, before I began to try to write my own curriculum with my own learning objectives, I would go online and look for assistance and ideas, and with no shame to emulate or even copy good models that have been developed by more experienced and wiser people than myself. So technology immediately relieves the teacher of some of the responsibility at the upfront end of the process. I've referred to the individualization potential in contemporary education. Again, the teacher can refer the student to the wealth of learning opportunities that are accessible through technology. And with regard to the third and the primary focus of our discussion at the assessment stage, I would be hesitant to introduce or purchase off-the-peg learning measurement instruments, but I would certainly look into the availability of ready-made instruments. So many questions in education are multivariate. So much depends on what's the content that we're trying to learn and teach, what are the characteristics of the particular students that we're trying to learn and teach. For some content and for some students, it's possible that there are satisfactory, standardized and tested assessment instruments that one would be advised to employ prior to or before attempting to develop one's own. Data, I referred to earlier. Educational technology provides us the resource for assembling data, analyzing data, and reporting data, accumulating the data results of the experiences of other teachers, teaching students of similar characteristics and similar content, all of which can then be used ultimately in the professional development of teachers themselves, which is another important aspect of the trend to the improved quality of contemporary education. So educational technology has a place to play all along the route, including the assessment. The assessment, as is obvious in my opinion from this conversation, cannot be simply cut off and discussed in separation from either what comes before the assessment or what comes before the teaching. They are really three integrated parts of a total process, each equally important and each accessible, each improvable and capable of development further through the application of current educational technology.